Hi Kenra, this is your girl Lo, and I'm super excited to work through a super fun technique utilizing the new Kenra Sunrise Collection of beautiful warm tones. I cannot wait to dive right in. So here we see kind of like a mirror image of what I'm going to be creating on both sides. It's a really nice zigzag with about 3 to 4 peaks. It's a little tricky to get this subsection if you don't section out this front piece first and kind of tuck the ends of the hair away. Okay, so now I'm gonna go on the other side. Okay, the left side of the head, I'm just gonna subsection out the back of her hair first and then create that zigzag part. So from the ear, we have a nice bold zigzag, and then in the front, you can see it's almost a triangle shape in the top, and then the zigzag follows through to the other ear. For the back, we're gonna subsection into 2 sections. I'm gonna do a really deeper section, and we're gonna let down way more hair in the back 2 sections so that I have more to pick up in my foiling. So you can see the zigzag is quite a bit deeper, so I have more hair to pick up. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. The reason why I'm sectioning this way is to get a little bit of dimension in my focus points, so I have just more heaviness in these anchors. Okay, so we have an overview of our sectioning. It's a little bit more shallow from ear to ear in front of the hairline. And then in the back of the nape, we have a bigger, chunkier sectioning. So we have more hair dropped out so that we can get a really nice, bold effect. What we're gonna do is mix up our blue powder lightener and start to foil. I'm going to feather my blue powder up towards the transition. So this means that you don't have to have super perfect sections just because you're giving yourself a slight little bit of forgiveness by just feathering the product up as you work. So I'm gonna feather the lightener right up against the foil here, but not touching the root. This is just gonna give us a little bit of leeway with our blend. Now we are gonna drop out just a little fine slice of hair in between each slice that we choose to foil. This is gonna make it really, really soft and not like too 90s chunky. And I'm going to repeat in each little zigzag section around the hairline. Make it super soft. This is gonna give us a really, really bold front piece. I'm gonna pop in 2 more foils in each section from ear to ear. If you're trying this technique on one of your clients that has pre-colored hair or highlighted ends, then you can definitely pick out pieces that fit what you're trying to create. You don't have to be glued to doing slices just because I'm showing you slices, but I've been having so much fun just picking up tons of heavier slices and finer slices just to create drama in the hair. Okay, so with these 2 sections, I'm just going to come back to them when I'm ready to dress the top crown. And I'm just gonna keep the symmetry 2 foils at a time around her hairline. So now that we're here, we can see these little peaks that we've created ahead of time with our sectioning. These are gonna be beautiful to tease up and tip out. That way you have a really heavy money piece area that has a softness as you work through the back of the crown. And the more you tease, the softer the transition will be. Just gonna feather, feather, feather I don't want to go up too high because I don't want to defeat the purpose of the placement. So we're just going to give like a little negative space area to work off of. This is a little bit of a bigger section because it's merging the two sides, the left and the right. So I'm gonna go ahead and tease that a little bit more. The more you tease, the softer and lower that graduation is going to be. As I'm laying the lightener onto my foil, you may notice that I'm going up and down, kind of like a balayage sweeping motion. It's really helping me get a subtle, soft effect. Now we're ready to move into the back section. I have the two zigzagged corners set aside so I can just quickly weave through and create heavy slices and teasing along the very bottom. This piece I'm gonna feather quite a bit. We don't need it to be like a money piece down here, but I do want it to have a heavy dimension once it's resting around our client's shoulders. So I'm just going to feather it up and then drop down each section in between. I always like building color in the front hairline first and then moving towards the back because this is where you want to see so much lift. It just helps me to create really strong movement and intention with my level of lift in my pattern. And then I save the top for detail and dimension. Okay, now that I'm at the top peak of this section, I'm just going to go ahead and tease it up and give it a little tip. And I'm going to fold the foil into thirds, and then I'm going to tighten it so it doesn't slip by creating this little triangle envelope. So we got through this section so quickly just because we isolated it. Now we're going to do the same type of pattern on these zigzag sections that we pulled out. Again, these sections from the ear back can be feathered because we don't need the brightness up to the scalp in the back. This could be a really tricky area to foil because of the round of the neck and you're working behind the ear. But I always have the most success just pulling the section towards the face of the client and laying my hand through the back of the foil. I also like to make sure that there's that little extra room to make that foil snug, just like that. So I'm gonna drop down this low light, and then my next section is the slice. And finally, this top triangle, we're gonna go ahead and do the same technique here where we're gonna tease it up. And then fold into thirds, and then close up the mouth of the foil. So we're gonna do the same pattern on the other side. That looks so nice. So here is the underneath larger section and also the front money piece section. So now we're going to address the top crown, and we're gonna do a ton of fun mohawk foils. So now we're isolating this top mohawk section. We're gonna put it aside. We will do some slices in there. But just to bridge this interior section to this bold perimeter that we created, I'm just going to lightly section that in two and just do a super soft little teasy tip out here. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of a weave in this section, and then we're gonna tease. And I dropped out some of that because, again, this is like such a poppy dimensional look that I don't wanna make it too solid. Again, we'll just do a little bit of a weave to just keep it dimensional and then pick up the ends. For these two pieces, we just popped in some Teasy dimension. I don't like to spend a lot of time in this area because we don't want to lose contrast. So I just whip those out on each side and then in the background too. I want to limit it to about 2 foils. Last but not least, we're going to go in at this crown section and we're going to take diagonal slices. We're still going to keep to the same pattern as we started with, leaving out some really thin pieces out in between each foil. But it's going to create a veil of color. So we're starting with the middle part where her hair wants to split. I'm going to take fine sections. I'm going to do really fine teasy slices. So I'm taking the lightener and I'm feathering it up. So it just creates a really soft transition, but really it's going to create such a bold piece so we don't lose our contrast. And in between each of these sections, we have a little slice left out. We're gonna pick these up at the very, very end. We're just gonna work through our section and do one more little slice. That's our dropout. I'm gonna just pick up really very fine slice. I used to be scared of doing slices. Now I just love it so much. I think it just creates such a nice effect. So now that I'm done adding dimension high up towards the part, I want to take this left out section and weave through to tip out a little bit of dimension, just like we did in the rest of the application. Beautiful. We're going to go ahead and copy this exact pattern on the left side. Feather, feather, feather. Feathering is your friend. And then also at this point, working at the top of the head like this, I chose to remix fresh lightener so that I get optimal lift. You will never catch me with a bowl of crusty lightener. Okay, so our very last little section is going to be taking these interior pieces and then doing a final tip out. Here's a 360 view of our lady. It's got a lot of teasiness and a lot of sliciness in here. We are going to have her process for about 45 to 55 minutes. I highly recommend you calibrate your processing time based on your client's natural level and hair color history. I love our end result. Our lift and sectioning and dimension is so beautiful. So now it's time to bring in the toner, and I'm really excited to work with the 6GG from the Sunrise Collection and then bring in a really beautiful warm all over glaze with 9GG. So to start, we're gonna drop the lower section of the nape down, and I'm gonna clip up the top half of the back section because I like to tone working from nape forward. I have my 6GG right here, and I'm gonna do a inch long shadow root. I like to look at each section as I work because, you know, I think sometimes it's easy to just slip into shadowing everything, but right here there's not really a need for a shadow, so I'm not gonna be overly concerned with hitting every section of the hair. I'm just gonna make sure that I pull forward everything from behind the ear back, just so I'm being super thorough with my shadow formula. And again, I'm just taking it about an inch off of the scalp. And then working up towards the crown, I'm just gonna make sure all my sections are clean. And now this top cascading area, I'm gonna go ahead and shadow it. I'm bringing the shadow down a little bit higher on the top. It's just gonna give me more of a teardrop effect. And now working towards the front, I like to take diagonal sections and I comb them neatly towards me. And with toning, I like to work super quickly just because time is money, and I like my shadow root to deposit as evenly as possible. And before I get too close to the hairline, I'm just gonna do a light little comb through and repeat these steps on the other side. So now I'm moving pretty quickly towards the front. I'm gonna make sure the very last sections that I do are that very front hairline. I'm gonna be a little bit more precise there. I fly through the back of the head, and I'm really cautious towards that front hairline because your clients need to have that pristine money piece. I'm gonna repeat on the other side with just a shallower money piece, and then I'm gonna start moving into my second formula, the 9GG. So here's our shadow root, and part of what I like to do next is just incorporate the lighter tone, bringing the shadow root through. I'm gonna do that right now with my 9 and bring that right over the front money piece. I'm gonna do the exact opposite of what I initially did with starting in the back. I'm gonna drag the 9 through the money piece, and it just makes it softer and more blended. It's gonna be so pretty and warm and glowy. Start combing through and finally lifting up the back. Bring that shadow root, blur it a little bit. So now I'm gonna start going section by section in like large sweeping motions, and I'm gonna bring the toner through. Usually at this point, I would be dropping her head back in the bowl and just getting the glaze worked through. I think the things that I like the most about the Kenra Demi-Permanents are that they're cream base, because that shadow root stays really where I put it, and it helps me to make executive decisions on where I want to see the blend. She's going to process for anywhere between 5 and 8 minutes, and I cannot wait to show you the final reveal. So here's our final look, and I really love how natural and organic it came together. You can see how soft the mohawk slices came out, and the all over glaze with the 9GG and the 6GG shadow root. It just really finished this beautifully, and as though it happened naturally by the sun. And our diagonal money piece came out so soft and beautiful. Truly, I cannot wait to see you try this look and tag Kenra Professional and myself so that we can see your finished results.